Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the second episode of Extra Time, the podcast where I'll be talking about everything football for the next hour or so. I'd like to welcome on our first ever guest, Harry. Good evening.
Hello.
How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. You? How are you?
Not too bad. So obviously, as a Spurs fan, Newcastle game for you. What was the biggest shock? Were there any players that stood out for you in that game? Obviously, we got the win, which was good to start the season off. But were there any players that stood out for you?
Definitely Christian Eriksen for me. I'm seen on Twitter as his biggest critic.
Yeah.
But I thought he was amazing on Sunday.
He definitely did seem like when we needed that little bit of creativity, he almost showed the world class that October last year we all hammered him for and said, you know what, he needs to go on the bench, he needs a wake-up call. And it's almost like since the game against Chelsea where he scored that banger, yes, okay, we lost 2-1, but since he scored that goal, he's not looked back.
I think...
Go on.
I think with Eriksen, in the last 10 games, he was definitely our best player, or one of the best. Because when he got his form, he was unstoppable, really. But the problem with him, and that, which is why I guess everyone sees me as, I hate him, blah, 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 it's because his consistency is the one issue I have with him.
Yeah, I can understand that. I mean, he's obviously been quite consistent recently, but there was a period last season where you didn't know whether it would be Eriksen's day or not. And if it wasn't, the whole team kind of missed that final bit. Do you then worry that, say, Barcelona don't get Coutinho, do you worry that they'll come in for Eriksen?
I don't think we'll sell him this summer. I still think Coutinho is going to leave Liverpool. So maybe I'm dodging the question a bit. But I do think they may come for him, but it's so late in the window now.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
I don't know whether he's going to go.
Obviously, right back situation, I'll get onto transfers in a bit, but it seems like Aurier's all but waiting for the court case to go through. How do you feel about Kyle Walker-Peters at the weekend? Obviously, I wouldn't feel comfortable with him against a Ronaldo in the Champions League. But how do you feel for maybe the bottom 5 to 7 teams in the Premier League? Do you think he'd be good enough against those teams next year, or do you think we need 2 new right backs rather than just say 1 and then him as a backup till Trippier comes in?
Well, it's interesting because if we bring in Aurier, doesn't it mean that one of them has to go? Because we're not going to have enough room in the squad, will we? I was thinking that the other day, actually. Potentially,
but then Kieran Trippier's... How old is he? He's only about 25, 26-ish, maybe. He might be 27 even. Obviously, Walker-Peters is so young. Do you not think that he'd get a little bit... Like Harry Winks last season, where he'd get 10 minutes here, 5 minutes there, 15 minutes there, and then slowly work him in? Because for me, I'm not sure... Obviously, one of the biggest issues we had was Walker, was he didn't like being rotated. But when you're playing 40 games a season, more than that, obviously, because the league's when you're playing 50, 60 games a season, you have to rotate. So maybe then having all 3 would be good, because it would mean that if we were to get, say, a long-term injury to Aurier, we could put Trippier in, and would you then feel comfortable with Walker-Peters being a backup? Or do you think that he should potentially drop down from the first team and bring in 2 new first-team fullbacks to cover for each other?
Oh, so I'm a bit confused. Do you mean we have 4 fullbacks?
So you'd drop him out of the first team, and then you'd have...
So Walker-Peters goes on loan, let's say.
Yeah, say, for example, and then you'd bring in an Aurier, and then when Trippier's back from injury, have Trippier. Or do you think it's worth keeping him in the first team for his experience?
Well, it's interesting, Walker-Peters, actually, because I saw him pre-season. I wasn't too impressed. But then I saw against Newcastle, attacking-wise, I really liked the look of him. Yeah. It's just what worried me on the weekend is whenever Atsu got the ball, he seemed...
He did, yeah.
Out of position, or... I don't know,
he seemed to struggle coming up against pace. There was that incident where if it had been onside, it would have been a penalty. That kind of, for me, was probably his only real big mistake against Newcastle.
Yeah, I think he has a lot of raw talent. That's definitely been proven on Sunday to me.
Right, okay. I didn't know. So you think that the first team is potential, but is maybe not quite ready to be playing every other game yet?
Yeah, I guess your point about him going in for relegation teams is good, you know. But then you can't exactly keep 3 right backs, keep them all happy as well.
Yeah.
With Trippier, I find he's actually good against those kind of teams, because when we push up and they inevitably sit deep, Trippier's delivery, which is the best part of his game, shines a lot more and is actually a better option than, say, what we used to have Walker. But in those scenarios, Trippier can actually excel a lot more.
Like Watford last year, where Trippier's crossed to Son's goal. That's those sort of games where the teams are not going to come at you with pace, so you know that you can push Trippier further forward and not have to worry about him having to sprint back at however many miles an hour to catch up with her. Right. Yeah, okay, that makes...
a Martial.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Okay. Obviously, transfer...
So I'm a bit...
Go on.
Iffy about Walker Peters. I would kind of loan him just to toughen him up a bit.
What sort... Would you say a bottom-tier Premier League club, and like Chelsea with Ake last year, where they're under pressure every single game to truly see whether they're fit for the Premier League or not? Or would you do what we've done with Josh Onoma and drop him down a level where he seems to be Villa's best player now, but then is he then going to be able to then step up to the high level when he comes back from loan?
I think maybe our good old friends at Swansea, maybe you should take him on loan.
Yeah, I think they'd potentially need the defensive cover actually for.
So maybe he might be a good place for him to go on loan. Because I remember reading Sky Sports that initially they wanted to bring a new right back in and loan him out anyway.
Right.
But I don't know if the situation's changed. Obviously, we're not at the club, so...
Yeah, and also you've got Trippier's injury to throw in the mix as well. Okay, speaking of obviously transfers and signing players...
Yeah.
We've not got a lot of experience with that. Daniel Levy seems... Well, not even Daniel Levy. The club just seems to be struggling with that final push. Out of everyone we've been linked to, who's, to you, is like the most attractive player? If you had to choose one player to link to, whether it's Davison Sanchez, whether it's Pereira the right back, Aurier, Keita from Lazio the winger, the Diop centre midfielder from Celta Vigo, I believe it is. Out of all of those players, who do you think would, if you had to choose one, who do you think is the most attractive signing for Tottenham?
Well, I'd say this is probably the least likely one, but Anthony Martial.
Right. Okay. So you think that would be. Okay, I can understand that. Well, and then what, you drop Son to the bench and have Martial start?
Well, the thing with Martial, which is great, is he can even play up front. And I think we kind of need someone, like with Keita, that's his name, I think. He's another one of these kind of players who, you can see Martial at United, he'll play on the wing one game, and then he'll play as a striker another game, because I think the one thing with Kane and Janssen, if you watch us play, is we lack an option to play the ball over the top and just have someone just to sprint.
Yeah. Do you not feel like Son's offered that though towards the back end of the season if he's had to fill in when Kane was injured? Obviously everybody said Spurs aren't going to cope. That's it, we're out of it. And then we stick Son up front, and all of a sudden he's 4 or 5 times the player he was last season.
I just think Son in general was a lot better last season anyway, because he showed glimpses in his first year, and then he kind of just settled in and then just didn't look back really.
No, he hasn't.
I prefer him off the left personally, or in the 3. I know they rotate sometimes, but up top I'm not really convinced with him. I think in an emergency I wouldn't say if all our strikers, say if Ken and Janssen got injured tomorrow and he had to play, I wouldn't be so worried than before.
Right.
But in the long term, I think it's not really the answer if you want some pace up front in the long term. But in a short-term injury crisis, say it's like 2 games or something, or 3 games, I wouldn't be so, worried if Son played up front.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. So obviously we're looking at Diop, who's a centre midfielder who's actually recently followed Spurs on Instagram. So that's an
really. I don't really follow that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, I've been trying to really get to grips and try and know the transfer before it's going to come through, but it doesn't seem like we're getting anywhere. He looks like a box-to-box midfielder who's going to play, when we play 3 at the back, playing the 2 centre midfielders. Do you not think then that Spurs signing a player like that then means that Harry Winks isn't going to get as much first-team football next year?
Yeah, and I'd be really disappointed if that happened, because I really like Harry Winks.
Fair enough.
But with Diop, I don't know whether it's just a smokescreen for Barkley, or it just seems a bit strange, because all the reports I've read has said Diop's going to be like a replacement for Onuma, and if they bring him in and say, "Oh, you're taking Onuma's place,"
Right.
which I find quite strange. So we loan out Onuma, and presumably this is like a special case because normally, obviously, Pochettino loans out young players that never come back. But in this scenario, apparently, it's a bit different. Does that mean if we sign Diop that Onuma's gone?
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from there because obviously if you look at where Onuma's played under Pochettino, he's either been on the wing or as a number 10. But if you look at where he's playing for Villa, he's playing as a holding midfielder.
Yeah.
So that's almost like if we were to sign Ross Barkley, who would play as a third number 10, if you like, as rotation for a number 10, rather than a holding midfielder. Whereas if we sign Diop, then all of a sudden does that mean Onuma's out? I can see that, and I guess that kind of makes sense because obviously, for me, Onuma's not really. He's had plenty of time now, and he's not really proven that he's up to the physicality or the strength of the Premier League. Do you not think that we could obviously, because I don't want to end up like Chelsea where we bring a player back and loan them and loan them and loan them again, and then by the time they're 25, their career is potentially damaged. But do you not think that there's still a chance, even if we would sign Diop and Barkley this window, that Onuma would still come back off loan and still stay in the first team? Or do you think if we sign Diop, that's the end goal for Onuma now?
I would say if we sign Diop, is it Diop or Diop?
Diop, something
Diop.
like that.
Yeah, sorry, it must be. And Barkley, I think that's probably the end, definitely the end for Onuma, because all the reports for Barkley say he's going to play central midfield, which I find quite strange.
Yeah.
But I guess the biggest question maybe I could pose to you is how many years do you think Dembele's got?
See, this is a conversation I've had with a lot of people. Is when we played against Palace, we played when we won 1-0 and Eriksen scored that screamer last season. We played 4-2-3-1, and when we made subs, because we were really struggling in that game, when we made subs, we dropped Eriksen back as a holding midfielder alongside Wanyama. So my thought is if we were to sign Barkley and say we played 3 at the back, would Dembele be on the bench and bring him on the last 25 minutes to hold out a game, start Wanyama and then drop Eriksen down alongside Wanyama?
And
as
that
a
brings
deep-lying
Barkley as a 10.
And then play Barkley as a number 10, yeah. And then if we were to play 4-2-3-1, then start Dyer and Wanyama in midfield, which last season when they did play midfield together, they were quite good, considering the first season we said they couldn't play midfield together.
Oh, yeah, I remember.
And then you play Barkley, Eriksen and Ali as your 3 number 10s behind Kane, and then Son off the bench.
Yeah. I don't know whether Barkley's even going to happen anymore because of his injury. I don't know, because obviously this is all redirecting back to Onuma. I think if Diop comes in, I would think that Onuma's not coming back because it wouldn't make sense to me that we bring another young central midfielder. How many do we need? We've got Winks already.
Yeah, and Poch is a big fan of Winks. He showed that a lot last season.
Yeah, and I like Winks. To me, comes across as like not Luka Modric as such, but in that kind of style,
he
like a deep line.
When he played against West Ham and he came on and we were 2-1 down and we were really struggling, when he came on he reminded me of Dembele. He just picked the ball up in midfield and just charged with it and didn't stop until it was in the final third. But then he has this attacking side of him, which, like you said, with the Modric and maybe part of...
I'm not saying he's Modric's level, but...
No, but in terms of, like, he shows the desire to get forward and score goals, which makes you say, actually, is he Dembele or is he Ali? Like, which one's he going to be?
Oh, I know what you mean, yeah.
And I feel like maybe when Poch brought him on against Juventus, he brought him on as a number 10, but I fully expected him to come on as a holding midfielder. So that kind of makes me say, well, what does Poch want him to be? And is he keeping his options open at the moment? Or does he know what he wants him to be?
Well, from what I've seen of him so far, I don't think he's going to be a number 10. Because I just don't think the productivity in that sense of he's, like with Ali, for example, or even Barkley, we would link with, they'll get you 10 to 15 goals, say, guaranteed.
Yeah.
Or that kind of level, let's say. With Winks, he doesn't come across as someone who would essentially be at the end of the cross on the weekend with Eriksen.
Yeah.
I wouldn't imagine Winks running in and being on the end of something like that. He seems more the person to be on the other side.
So he's almost the assist before the assist then.
Yeah,
rather than the guy that's putting the goals and getting 20, 25 goals a season, which is what Ali seems to be getting at the moment, which is quite crazy, to be honest with you.
Yeah, yeah, considering his age.
So, what's your take on Janssen? Because obviously people have seen you as being quite critical before,
Yeah.
and I know you were towards the start of the season. You were kind of frustrated with him, and likewise, with a lot of people were.
Yeah.
But my opinion is that a lot of people don't realise is with AZ Alkmaar, it was his first professional contract ever. It was his first season in professional football, and he got the Golden Boot. And people say it's the Dutch league, blah blah blah, but he's still got the Golden Boot. That's hard, whatever league you're in, especially when you've got teams like Ajax to compete with and Feyenoord and things like that. So I personally think he's so similar to Harry Kane, and that the way his work ethic is, and he's proven in some of the finishes he's done that he has got ability.
Yeah.
I know it was done against Millwall, but that finish wasn't easy, was it?
Yeah.
So, do you think we should give him another year, or do you think like we've been offered a loan offer from Stoke, and Borussia Mönchengladbach said they were willing to pay 15 to 18 million pounds for him? Do you think we ship him off after a season, or do you think we give him a second season? Because I personally feel like he deserved it, if anything.
Yeah, the thing with Janssen, it's a funny one. It's almost like I'm watching Kane. You know when Kane first came in?
Yeah.
Gosh, how many years ago was that now? I don't remember.
Oh, it was a while.
But it's almost like he's stuck in that phase, or I'm worried he's either going to be stuck in that phase or he's not actually. So with Janssen, a lot of people, obviously, like you just said with Kane, maybe like, as in the comparisons and that, give him a year or something and then he'll just, he'll end up being good. Is that, say for example, we don't sign another, say for example, we don't sign another forward like Keita or Martial, someone of that ilk.
Yeah.
And then we keep Janssen. Our sort of backup striker is always going to be a similar player. And if we want to change a game, you don't exactly have like a different option.
Right, okay.
So, in a sense that, we take off Kane and we bring on Janssen, it's almost like the same striker, except, worse. But
right, okay. So, yeah, I understand. So if
does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. So if we're in a game where, say, it's 2-2, and we're Champions League, it's 2-2, and their defence is tired, they've got a red card or something, and we need someone, fresh pair of legs, who's going to come on and break the defensive line straight away, ball over the top and score. We need someone who's got the consistency and the accuracy to be able to score that on the one chance they're going to get, but also the pace to get over the top. And I guess Janssen is, again, a hold-up player. Yeah.
But then in the sense that, maybe I should have checked this before we did this, but Kane's, say, 24 years old, isn't he?
Yeah, he is, yeah.
Am I wrong?
He's just turned 24 or 23, I believe.
And Janssen's 22?
22, yeah, I think so.
So there's, 2 years between them?
Yeah, roughly.
So, in a sense, if we keep Janssen as a long-term, say, quote-unquote replacement to Kane, he's not really... Say that we get to that point, we sell Kane and Janssen's his replacement. They're only 2 years apart. It's almost like he's not going to have a lot of time after that, even.
Right. So
see, I don't know.
Say Kane was to retire at, say, 32, and then Janssen would only get 2 years of professional football.
Yeah, if we were looking at age-wise strictly, Kane, obviously no one's going to take over Kane's spot.
No.
I think Kane's going to keep scoring 30 goals a season, the way it's going.
Yeah.
Which exceeded my own expectations of him, even when I wanted him to play.
Yeah.
But that's the thing, because if, say, he was a 19-year-old or an 18-year-old striker, you'd keep him because long term he would be a successor, so to speak.
Right, but because the age gap's so
2 years
small,
apart, it's a bit.
Yeah, I can understand where you're coming from. Right. We almost. Do you not think then that, say, for instance, if we're playing Juventus in the Champions League, for example, on a Wednesday, and then we've got Bournemouth on a Saturday at the weekend, do you not think that it would be best to play Kane for 90 minutes on the Wednesday and then Janssen for 90 minutes on the Saturday or Sunday, because then we're playing to the exact same play style. We've just got someone who's maybe doesn't quite understand Ali and Eriksson as much, but Jansen's always in the right positions, and you can always guarantee he's going to give 110%. He's proven that last season. So do you not think on that aspect it's worth keeping? Because say you have to play a Son or a Martial up front, then all of a sudden you're having to adapt your play style to play against Bournemouth because you're using a different type of striker.
Yeah, I know what you mean. In an ideal world, we'd have Jansen anyway, and we'd have 3 strikers, and so we had a Keita or a Martial or some of that ilk as like the third / winger, so to speak. And then he can also give us a different option, so we can play him up front if we need a bit of pace, etc. Like with Jansen, it's not for me. I'm not bothered if he goes. I'm not bothered if he stays. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
It depends how the club sees him. If Poch sees that he can progress and he's happy sitting on the bench all these games and just playing the Bournemouths or the Swanseas or whoever, the bottom 5 to 6 teams, for example.
So it's more based on the way Poch views him and the way he sees his position at the club and whether he thinks he's happy of sitting like that. See, I think with the way the clubs and the fans a lot of the fans have been towards Jansen and Jansen's work rate and the fact that he made it clear when his season finished at AZ Alkmaar that he wanted to move to Spurs. I think that's kind of helped the fans be a little bit more understanding and gel a lot more.
Yeah.
Like say if you look at Ng, for example, we didn't feel like the personal connection with Ng like fans do with Jansen, and so we were on his back every game.
It's kind of like Soldado again.
Yeah, exactly. We didn't feel that. Obviously, Soldado still loves Tottenham and he still tweets about us a lot and still has support for the club, but we didn't feel that connection with him. Whereas I think with Jansen's work rate, we kind of understand that he's giving everything to be accepted by the fans. So I guess that makes him worth keeping in a sense. Next player.
In a sense, like I guess a good example to compare when I was growing up as a Spurs fan with Jansen is we had Stefan Freund. I remember, gosh, that was years ago. But I remember I used to like him because he used to try and get the fans to start singing and stuff, and he had a real connection. But I wouldn't say he was the best player.
Right, okay.
Not by a long shot.
So Jansen's almost like a connectivity between the fans and the players that we don't realise, but he's not necessarily going to say people are going to look at him at the start of the season and go, oh, damn, he's getting the Golden Boot this year.
Yeah, because we have Harry Kane, for me, I don't think we need to buy a pacey option just for this because we need one.
Yeah.
And because, like I said, I look at our strikers and I think if we take off Kane and bring on Jansen, you're essentially bring on the same kind of striker. And okay, maybe the odd game he may get a goal and maybe he'll prove me wrong and start scoring
like he did against Swansea, like he did against Swansea last year with the backheel assist for Son. Like he came on and made an instant impact.
Yeah, I mean, I can't remember what game I watched. I was one game where I saw him last year and I was like, oh, he showed something. It wasn't actually Swansea. I can't remember which game it was off the top of my head. But his work ethic, you can't question it, obviously. The issue with me is his productivity. I mean, I'd be happy if he got 10 goals this year, honestly.
I've in my opinion, I think he'll probably get 15 goal contributions, goals and assists in all competitions next year. And for me, for his third year professional football, second year at Spurs, I feel like that's a good return, especially playing back up to Harry Kane as well.
I mean, in some sense, all these people kept telling me on Twitter, Jansen's just a bench player. It's true. But on the other hand, we kind of need someone to push Harry in another sense and maybe signing another player who can play it all across. We'll do that even.
Right, okay. So we need...
Because my worry with Jansen is he going to push him? Number 2, like I said before, you bring him on for Kane. And there's not exactly, you're not asking questions of the opposition defence. You're not asking a different question to the opposition defence.
Right, okay. Yeah. You're replacing a 1 for a 1 rather than replacing a 1 for a 4, for example, who's going to just... Yeah, okay.
Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah. Next player is Kevin...
It's more tactical more than him in that sense, yeah.
Next player is Kevin Wimmer, because this is interesting, right? Because I felt like when he came and played 3 or 4 games in a row last year, like with Ben Davies, we've proven that over the last 5 or 6 games for Spurs now, he can be a quality fullback. But when he came against Liverpool, we all hated him. So literally,
Yeah.
we were though, but he was so in the deep end. With Wimmer, I feel like if he gets a good run of games, he's fantastic, and I feel like Poch wanted him for a long-term replacement for Jan Vertonghen, but now it's gotten to the point, obviously, with Van Dijk linked to Liverpool, Wimmer and Gabriel from Arsenal are both linked to be the replacements at Southampton. Do you think
Yeah.
he's worth keeping, or do you think sell him and use that money to bring in a Carlos Sanchez or a Foyth, I think his name's spelt, from the Argentinian league that we were linked with, the 18-year-old? Or do you
Oh,
think...
Foyt, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it is, yeah. What do you think's our best stance with Kevin Wimmer? Because obviously we're in a difficult situation because a lot of fans don't like him, but I feel like...
Really? Oh.
There are a lot of fans that I'm speaking to that don't like him, that doesn't think he's good enough every time he comes on. But let's face it, if you've not played in 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks, you're not gonna instantly gel to the team.
Yeah.
The best example of that
with,
to look at is Ben Davies.
Yeah, I mean, with Davies, I would admit I was his biggest critic, and I was quite baffled when he signed a new contract. I was wondering, because obviously we're always pushed in this club by, I guess maybe this is from Levy's mouth, but that the players get rewarded for new contracts. And I was thinking to myself, why did Davies get one? Because I haven't exactly seen it.
He showed nothing when he came on that suggested he deserved it.
And then after, he's been a lot better. It's quite strange. I think after the Arsenal game, I was convinced. I was like, okay, I'm wrong. He was really good. But with Wimmer, it's good you use Ben Davies as a comparison. But like, if you remember a couple of seasons ago now, when our breakthrough season, so to speak, Wimmer came in when Vertonghen was out, and he was brilliant.
Yeah.
And like, I've seen, say for me, that's like not even a glimpse. That's a good, however many games played, maybe it was 10 or something, where he came in and he showed he was good. And that season he was really good. But last year he was almost kind of thrown in every 5 minutes. I thought Watford away he was good, but like, he hasn't really played.
It's difficult. I understand where you come from, and it's like he's shown enough. People have seen him from the last few seasons where he's played 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there.
Yeah.
But yeah, over the course of the time he signed for Spurs, he's shown enough to say he's a good enough backup and potentially a long-term replacement for Vertonghen.
Yeah, like I personally, I want to keep Wimmer, but if he wants first team football and he wants to go, we can't, you can't really stop the player from going. But on the other hand, like, if Vertonghen gets injured tomorrow, who's going to play?
No one. What are the apart from Wimmer, what other left-sided centre-backs have we got?
And it's quite, I think it's quite hard looking at the market and just in general, centre halves or defenders, so to speak. It's quite hard to find left-sided defenders and left-sided centre halves, which are actually quite good, especially for backups. If this Sanchez comes, he's actually a right-sided player. So getting rid of Wimmer doesn't really make sense anyway. To me,
you see, I've always had the attitude that if you're playing with 4 at the back and you've got 2 centre backs, have a left-footed centre back on the left hand side, right-footed centre back on the right side, and have another one of each on your bench or within your squad. But it seems like now people are saying that Spurs' squad depth lacks, and yes, it does, granted, but. Morata turned around and told Pochettino, no, I'm not coming to Spurs, because who wants to play backup to Harry Kane? I ain't got no chance of getting in that first team. It's now so hard to get players, because players are getting too big for their boots. It's hard to find someone who can say, you know what, I'm happy to play every other game or the weekend games where you've got a tough Champions League game.
Yeah.
Because no one wants to do it. And then when you get injured, your squad's crippled, and it's rather frustrating.
It's almost like... I mean, I love Pochettino. I think his coaching is really good, but I think with Wimmer, I think he almost played him in the wrong games last year, if that makes sense. So, for example, like you just said, with a low league team after Champions League, I don't even remember, we had a Champions League game in midweek, and he played Wimmer with Dyer at centre half, and then we have a game on the weekend, and he plays Vertonghen.
I did remember that. That didn't make much sense at all.
So, in a sense, that if you're going to bed Wimmer, and if he's going to play well, I think you have to pencil him in for, say, Bournemouth's home and away, Swansea home and away, and then maybe up to, say, the bottom 10 teams, let's say. I'm just talking hypothetically here. But and if they're after Champions League games, like, and Vertonghen say not fully fit, obviously I'd rather see Wimmer play than a not fully fit player. And for me, like, with these kind of players, I think you have to pencil in what games they're going to play.
So they feel more confident that they're guaranteed to play a certain amount of appearances. Obviously, excluding injuries and bookings and things like that, they're guaranteed to play a certain amount of games each season. So they know, you know what, coming in and start this campaign, I'm playing this week, this week, this week, and this week. So then they have more confidence rather than going, okay, I'm probably on the bench this week, or I might be called on for 5 minutes here or 5 minutes there.
Like, I would say our defensive cover is probably, in terms of squad depth, I mean, I don't agree that, you know, we have good enough squad depth. But in terms of the back, we've got, you know, we don't have 2 right backs anymore. But, for example, we've got 2 good left backs, got 3 or 4 good centre halves, if you include Wimmer, 2 goalkeepers. In terms of that sense, getting rid of Wimmer is kind of silly, because it's like, well, who's going to play there? Do you think Carter Vickers can just step in and do what Wimmer did?
Personally, I don't. I think Carter Vickers needs a loan move to work under someone like Eddie Howe or Sean Dyche. Especially, I think Burnley would be a good shout, definitely, because Burnley are, obviously they've lost Michael Keane now. They're in need of another centre half, and I think Sean Dyche is one of the best managers in the country.
Fair enough.
Like, what he's done with Burnley with so little. Like, I feel like last season he was fantastic. I think Eddie Howe even more so. Getting in the top 10 with Bournemouth last year was incredible. How on earth he managed that?
Eddie Howe's brilliant.
Well, sure. I think Eddie Howe may be a good manager to work on. I feel like, to see if Carter Vickers is truly made for the Premier League or not, he needs to loan where he's under pressure every single week. Because let's face it, if you're coming in and you're playing in between Alderweireld and Jan Vertonghen, and with Lloris behind you, there's not really much pressure at all. Because if you mess up, they're going to be there to clear up your mistakes, and you're not learning from anything. I feel like, in a harsh way, Carter Vickers needs to be in a team where if he makes a mistake, they concede a goal. Not necessarily every time, but maybe 1 in 3. Because then sooner or later, he'll learn his mistakes because he'll have to, otherwise he'll be dropped. Whereas with Spurs, when he's coming in, he's playing in a complete defence already. And he's not really learning anything.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point, actually. But our issue is that Pochettino doesn't like learning out players. You know, we spoke about Walker Peters and we said maybe he should go to Swansea on loan or someone of that sort. And now he's saying with Carter Vickers, and I agree with you, you know, maybe we should loan to Bournemouth, because, like with Ake, Eddie Howe improved him.
Yeah, he did.
But is Pochettino going to loan out young players?
Especially
I think that's the biggest question.
Yeah, it's the thing about the manager. I mean, if we were to loan out, like with Honour, and this is why I think someone like a Diop or a Barkley is almost a dead certain coming, because I don't think he'd have loaned out Honour if they weren't coming in. Likewise, if he was to loan out Carter Vickers and he was to loan out Kyle Walker-Peters, I think that guarantees that there would be a full-back signing and there would be another centre-back signing, because it would be stupid to loan those players out and not have replacements to come in.
Yeah.
But then
remind me, is Carter Vickers a left-sided or right-sided?
Right-sided.
So this is another issue. If we let go of Wimmer and Vertonghen gets injured, you end up having 2 right-footed players. Yeah, and it upsets the balance of the team, I think, personally.
Yeah, that's one thing I've noticed with Spurs is there's nothing more pleasing than watching Jan Vertonghen play a nice left-footed curled ball down the left-hand side for the fullback to run onto.
Yeah.
It's a case of how much we're going to
everyone's going to see us. I can just imagine some people listening to this after and going to see us. About Pochettino saying he doesn't loan out players, seeing us saying, you're criticising the manager now.
Yeah. Well, at the end of the day, it's all about opinion, and people that know me know that I'll express my opinion. If someone wants to talk to me about it, they can talk to me about it. But see, that's Spurs. I'll go through my. No, go on.
I think, like you were saying, like if Walker Peters goes, it's guaranteed the right back's coming in.
Yeah. Do you think then, how much, obviously, because with social media now, unless I see it in a yellow box on Sky Sports app or I see it confirmed with the tick from Twitter, I don't really believe it's signing. How much do you believe that Aurier is real? Because for me, it seems like for 25 million pounds, I know he's got his issues,
Yeah.
But he's got ability. For me, someone like Chelsea should be all over that deal. There were rumours that they were until they realised that they had to take it to court to get his ban from the UK
Yeah.
appealed, and they said no. Do you think
Yeah.
it's true that we've agreed personal terms and we've agreed a fee and everything's done and we're just waiting for the court case? Or do you think that's been a bit manipulated and actually we're not as far through as we think we are?
For the way the transfer's going this summer, you have no idea where Ori is.
Well, yeah, there is that.
But the Queep reported a few times that Ori agreed terms with United, I think.
Yeah, they did,
Who was it? It was another European side. And then I know Chelsea were rumoured to be in for him. But the Queep are quite reliable. But if he's agreed terms with all these teams...
Maybe he's just waiting to see which... Maybe he's agreed terms with all these teams, but they're like, now we can't bother to take it to court, so we'll just ditch it. And then, obviously... if
Spurs or not.
And Levy's a smart man. If he sees an opportunity and thinks that actually there's an opening here and I'm going to be patient, I'm going to push it and I'm going to throw everything at it, then you know what he's like. He'll be determined enough to get it and fight for it.
But, I mean, I guess it's a good point to bring up with Aurier because obviously he has his homophobic
issues,
which I'm not particularly... And then other issues.
Like being up the police officer in the Arsenal PSG game that he then got sent home for.
Yeah, I mean, like, I agree with you fully. Like, his ability is unbelievable. Like, whenever I see him play, he's such a good right back. And if I wanted to pick a right back for us to sign this summer, like a dream signing for right back, I would have picked Aurier.
Yeah, because he's a Kieran Trippier with more pace, in a sense. That's how I see him. And I mean that in the sense that obviously Kyle Walker had pace but couldn't cross for shit. That's how I word that. So do you think if Pochettino, if we were to sign him and everything was go through, do you think Pochettino is the right manager to, and then would change his attitude and change his ways, or do you think he's going to be like a Sissoko where we've seen like the smallest little glimpse here when he's got one assist against this team or this team, whatever, and then he's just gone back to being a player we've wasted money on, and now we've got to wait another 2 years before we can replace them?
Yeah. Well, with Sissoko, I still think it was complete panic buy on the last day because we lacked a midfielder, and they just thought we'd buy him. I think also with Sissoko, I think he was just waiting for any move, so to speak. Because I think Chelsea were rumoured to be in for him that morning, and then that didn't happen.
It was Everton because I remember waking up at about 9 o'clock, and about 10 o'clock we put £11 million bid in. Then it was rejected. Yeah. Then about 9:30. Everton put a £30 million bid in, and he was supposedly on the way to Merseyside, and he was having his medical. Next thing you know, Spurs have matched it. I want Champions League football. Somehow I'm already in London. I thought you were on your way to Merseyside. That rather frustrated me. And deadline day this year is going to be not looking forward to it.
Well, the way our transfers are going, I think they're all going to be done on that day.
Yeah. But maybe we've got an Nkudu like last year where he's just been waiting in a hotel for 8 weeks or something because we can't push the deal through. Speaking of Nkudu, is obviously for me, I felt like on pre-season, Nkudu and Janssen were our most promising players. That goal they scored, I think it was against Roma. Nkudu sprinted down the wing and crossed it in and Janssen finished it. That was a fantastic goal. Last year, people were crying out saying, buy a pacey winger, buy a pacey winger, buy a pacey winger. Nkudu's 21 years old. Do you think he can fill the boots, or do you think we've signed another Ng rather than a potential of a Lamar or a Martial with Nkudu? Because at first I thought he would be like an Ng, but it seems like this pre-season, obviously he didn't get pre-season last year, and it seems like pre-season this year he's completely changed.
I mean, I think this becomes more of like a debate in itself. I think a lot of people tend to equate players' performances more by moments, like you just mentioned, with the run, the cross, and scored that great goal, rather than like an overall look at. No, I'm not even talking about statistics. I'm just look at the way they played. I mean, with Nkudu, every time I've seen him, I was quite excited when we first signed because I thought, oh, we've got some pace again. Yeah. But his end product's very questionable. I still think he's going to end up more of an Njai than a Martial. At least from what I've seen. I don't know how much he's even going to play next year.
That is valid point. I mean, he seems like he's in Poch's plans, so that's interesting. But then again, Onuma was supposed to be seen in Poch's plans. Obviously, he's on loan now, so
yeah. But I don't know how I feel with Nkudu. Like I said, his end product's the one thing that just makes me think I don't know whether he's going to do it or not. And I still think with Lamar, it's another thing that you bring up with him. It's like he was very impressive against us, but if you look, he's probably played regular football for, say, a year. I don't know how long he's been at Monaco, but
it's
a
really
year or
broken out at Monaco last year. Yeah.
Yeah, to say his breakout season, but he was playing every week, for example, and his productivity was, really good. I think.
So say then, like with Janssen playing against the bottom teams, if we were to do that and play him and Kudu, and maybe almost play like a full second starting 11 with maybe Lloris the only player and the fullbacks the same, do you think that would be better for our squad? I mean, it can't really be much worse, but do you think, is it worth the risk, or is it worth just selling Janssen and Kudu and then just bringing in whole new players and hoping that they're going to gel in the first new season? Because obviously Janssen and Kudu have all had a season to gel now.
Yeah. The thing is, I'm personally, with Janssen and Kudu, I'm more hopeful with Janssen doing something than Kudu, from what I've seen. Just because I think with Janssen, at least he's got that work ethic, and at least there is something there.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think I've seen the glimpses, but if we know, like we just discussed before, he knows he's going to be sitting on the bench, and say we do pencil him in for Bournemouth, Swansea, Burnley, etc., and he knows he's starting those games, maybe his form will change. With Nkudu, like I said, like he's got pace, but I've never really seen. He almost seems a bit clumsy when I watch him play sometimes.
Okay, so just the lack of ball control, the fact that he doesn't know what he's doing when it's at his feet. He can run for days, excuse me, but there's not really anything there. Okay, that's interesting.
I think it's his. I think maybe I've just got to the point now. I think Janssen's seems to have more of a footballing brain than Nkudu.
Nkudu, right? Fair enough. That's makes sense.
At least from what I've seen, yeah.
Before I go on to what I predicted for the results last week, which were absolutely woeful, obviously there've been recent talks about, once we hit the 1st September this year, negotiations for changing the transfer window and ending the English transfer window at the start of the new season. Do you think that's a good idea, or do you think that's a bad idea? Obviously, it means that Levy's got to get his wallet out of his arse quicker, but then all of a sudden you're then either overpaying because, say you sign a player from Sevilla, they're like, well, hold on a second, you've got 2-3 weeks less than everybody else, so we'll increase 20-30% of the value. Or you've got another club that say, you know what, the player wants to move to this other club, that player will keep stalling it till our window's over, and then they'll just go somewhere else. Do you think if they were to do it, do you think it would be better to do it at the start of, I don't know when the other leagues start actually, do they all start at the same time as us or not?
I know Italy start a week later. I don't know about Spain. I think are the same.
So do you think it would make sense for football to, because obviously as Paul Clement's come out and said, and a bunch of other managers have come out and said in the media, that the transfer window is a distraction for other clubs, but surely until you've played the first few weeks of football, you don't know what you need.
Yeah, that is a good point. I mean, I've always personally been for it. The transfer window is closed before the season starts because it stops disruption for managers during the actual season. So we're not 4 weeks into 2 weeks into the season, and we're still scrounging around for a signing. But then on the other hand, if you look at it like you just said about them playing football, and then for example, Lau, we just got a Trippier injury.
Yeah, then there's nothing you can do, is there?
And it's like, oh yeah, we can actually buy someone. So, I mean, there's pros and cons with it. It depends whether the managers and the chairman and the clubs manage to forecast, their plans well in advance.
Right. Okay.
How advanced can you, project?
You plan? Yeah, exactly. Because I'm sure if the transfer window had closed last week, Chelsea wouldn't have expected to lose 3-2 to Burnley, and now all of a sudden be like, well, hold on a second, do we need this player, like we need fullbacks, etc., etc. Okay, I mean, I'm a bit up and down on it because in a sense, like, it'd be great for Spurs because Levy would get all his business done. But then,
Yeah.
what if the reason why is because, like with the likes of Sigurdsson, there's a sell-on clause with who was with Bentaleb. There were so many clauses for if he got individual achievements and things like that. And then when he got goal of the season award last year in the Bundesliga, that gave us some extra money from him. So it's almost like does. As a club, and the way Levy is so smart in his dealings, as much as people don't want to admit it, he is. Does that?
Well, I'm not a Levy fan.
Well, I mean, yeah, but for the certain things like that, would you prefer him to take an extra 2 weeks to negotiate a Bentaleb loan deal, which meant that we got all these little clauses here and there that ends up instead of being £10 million, we get £25 million from him at the end of the first season? Like, I feel like those extra 2 weeks would be really, really important.
I mean, for me, like you said about the football, that's more important, at least the way I look at it, is that if you go into a season and say all your strikers get injured in the first 2 games, just theoretically, you're left with no strikers now. So you're going to have to buy someone. If the window had already closed, there's no chance.
Yeah. I guess it kind of leaves managers, because you either overspend and then have so many players, and that come January you've got 4 or 5 players that are unhappy, or you end up with a Southampton situation now where Van Dijk is clearly not making the atmosphere at Southampton and in the dressing room comfortable because he wants to leave. But obviously, if that was all dealt with before the start of the season, then he'd either be there or he'd have to just shut up and put up with it or not play football, which he probably wouldn't mind because he'd get paid anyway. So,
yeah, I think all these long, drawn-out transfer sagas has kind of prompted this, because those situations would have resolved before the season started, and now because that's still causing disruption within those clubs as well. So, in that sense, we wouldn't have these long, drawn-out transfer sagas whilst the football was happening, which is probably more beneficial for the atmosphere at the clubs in the sense that they know a week before the season starts, this is our squad. That's it.
Yeah, because obviously
you're staying.
With the likes of Swansea, Sigurdsson's not. Obviously, he's now confirmed moving to Everton, but obviously that hasn't helped them. The Van Dijk situation has not helped Southampton and Liverpool, because obviously Liverpool have thrown all their eggs in Van Dijk's basket, and if he decides, you know what, I'm going to Chelsea now, then they're without a centre back who can actually defend. Well, Matip can defend, but
that's it.
You don't want to. You don't want to be bringing on Lovren or Klavan in the Champions League group stage if you've got an injury to Matip.
Yeah. It's a good question to pose about the window, because, like I said, in one sense, I would want it to close because we would, say disruption with everyone. But then, on the other hand, if you get an injury a few weeks into the season, what are you going to do?
Yeah, the thing is, injuries are just a pain in the ass. I mean, we were so injury riddled last season, and that cost us. Obviously, Chelsea picked up quite a few injuries already this season. With Hazard, looks like he's actually going to be out for Sunday, even though there are reports saying that he might be back. It looks like he's going to be out. And now, who do they play on the wing? Some guy called Bogger, who I've never heard of before and didn't even know existed. So, yeah, okay.
There's pros and cons to it, I think. Honestly, I think they'll vote for it to close before the season starts. But from what I understand and what I've read, I think we can still sell players to clubs who still have their windows open. We can't buy any.
It's just bringing in players that we won't be able to do.
Yeah.
Which, to be fair though, no club is going to want to sell a player if they can't then bring a replacement in or haven't already got a replacement in. So it just means that the problem with that is you find that players would be hoarding players until we've got, like Leicester for example, linked to selling Danny Drinkwater to Chelsea. Stupid move in my opinion, but say then Leicester would be like, we're going to hold on to Danny Drinkwater until the last available second until we've got a replacement in. All of a sudden every team's hoarding their players, even though they want to sell them, and it just becomes a mess. Okay.
I think the transfer window is a mess always.
Well, yeah, there is that. I mean, at least we're not in that mess at the moment, although that's not necessarily a good thing. But we need to dip our head in, and I think we will.